Hello, my name is Rose Riley, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County. Welcome to our online candidate forum for the November 5th general election. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that promotes voter education and participation, and we host candidate forums to help voters make informed choices. Now, let's hear from the candidates.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Dulin, and I will moderate the forum tonight. It is my honor to introduce the two nonpartisan candidates running for judge of the 15th District Court, Tamara Garwood and S. Kerene Moore. Thank you, both candidates, for your time this evening and participating in this forum. We will begin with opening statements, and if we're ready, we'll get started with Ms. Garwood.
Thank you. My name is Tamara Garwood. I have lived in Ann Arbor for more than 25 years. I've also been a lawyer for more than 25 years, handling civil, criminal, probate, and family law matters through all phases of litigation. For the past 8 years, I've had the honor of being on the bench as the magistrate for the 15th District Court, the Court of Vacancy. And this gives me a unique eye to the needs of our court and to the great successes we have in Ann Arbor. Every day on the bench, I hold people accountable for their actions. I protect the rights of the individuals who come before me and protect our community with fair, just, and equitable decisions. Every day, I work to end cookie-cutter justice, holding people as individuals, not their criminal histories or the crimes that bring them to court. I work to expand our community outreach and our youth engagement, getting to young people early and often so we can try to end the school-to-prison pipeline. I also work to increase the efficiency and effectiveness and inclusiveness of our court. In this election, my bench experience, my compassion, and my judicial temperament are unparalleled, and I hope to earn your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Moore, may we have your opening statement?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kerene Moore, and I'm running for 15th District Court Judge because I believe in increasing access to justice, supporting restorative justice, and protecting victims' rights. I took my first case as a first-year law student over 2 decades ago, and I went on to represent over 1,000 people who couldn't afford an attorney. I fought discrimination at the Department of Civil Rights. I've worked behind the bench as a judicial attorney and had the opportunity to hear cases as a juvenile referee. I currently work for Ellie Savitt in the prosecutor's office, doing innocence investigations and providing expungement work support. But my work isn't just in the courtroom. I'm also on the ground in the community and a leader in social justice advocacy. I have 10 publications. I've served as an Ann Arbor Human Rights Commissioner, on library board, on the board of Neutral Zone. I've founded a pro bono project with U of M law students that's going into its 10th year. We know where our justice system fails. We have pronounced racial disparities. We're weak on victim services. And it's always felt like there's been 2 justice systems, one for people who can and one for people who can't afford an attorney. Who we elected the seat has the ability to impact all of those issues. We know that the background a judge brings behind the bench matters. We have 3 treatment courts. Whether a judge has the background needed to connect with treatment court participants and help them see a path forward matters. How hard a judge works to make sure justice is served for people from all walks of life matters. I know that I have the background needed to not just enforce the law fairly, but to also make a better, more inclusive justice system that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Now we're going to shift to our questions, and we will start with the first question with Ms. Moore. The question is, it is often said that justice delayed is justice denied. What management experience do you have that would prepare you to manage a docket effectively?
So I definitely think my experience behind the bench as a judicial attorney and juvenile referee will help me manage the dockets. I think being number 2 in judges' chambers and being the point person for making sure that the cases on the docket are actually heard, and for cases suddenly missing from the docket, make it to the docket as well. It's important just understanding what that environment is like from the person, standing next to the judge behind the bench, and actually organizing that helps. Making sure you have a team that's looking for the things that you can't look for when you're on the bench is important. And having been beside the person on the bench, I know what that looks like, and I can help make sure that those who are working with me are looking for those items and understand that where someone is complaining and wants to be heard and wants to have an opportunity to be heard, that I may be available and that I am open to, expanding the docket and receiving notes, and just having an open and welcoming atmosphere is something that really matters, and making sure the staff is on board. So my experience actually being behind the bench and coming in with a new judge will definitely help me there in that capacity.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Garwood.
Thank you for the question. So the question is, how will my experience allow me to manage a docket effectively? Well, that's what I do every day. As a magistrate on the bench, I handle my own docket. People pull the files necessary for my docket, but every night before I go home, I make sure that that docket is ready to go. And if there's a problem with the docket, I myself go and I find whatever files are missing. Every day I'm on time. Every day I'm prepared. So as cases come to me, I can handle them in a timely manner. When decisions have to be made and can't be made at that time on the bench for whatever reason, I am quick to respond to those issues and to render decisions and opinions in a very timely manner. I'm on call at this point 24/7. As long as I'm in the state of Michigan, I'm on call for our 14 agencies. And this really forces me to be efficient with my time, because I'm waking up in the middle of the night to get phone calls for search warrants and stuff and such. I also handle our weekend dockets. We have court every day of the year in Washtenaw County for criminal matters. That includes holidays and weekends. And at those times, I'm often visiting a different court to do those criminal arraignments. And I often have to manage how to get the docket moving in an efficient manner, gathering information from the various agencies, from different prosecutors. So really, this is something I do every day. I think I do it well. And I think anyone who would come into the courtroom would say that it is a well-run courtroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, and this question will begin with Ms. Garwood. Other jurisdictions, such as Cook County, Illinois, have created specialized restorative justice courts. What is your position on expanding restorative justice options in Washtenaw County courts?
Thank you for the question. Well, I think that whenever restorative justice can be used, I think it's an excellent opportunity, as long as everyone who is involved is willing to participate. There's something holistic about repairing the harm that criminal matters have, holding people accountable, but protecting victims. And I think in many cases, non-traditional justice serves those needs. I think we have to focus on reconciliation, and that then allows offenders and individuals involved in crimes to really have a better understanding of what the impacts of their crimes are on our community and on others. And I think often that's lacking. So it's really an exceptional opportunity to do that. Right now, we don't really have restorative justice programs per se in the 15th District Court, and I would certainly welcome the opportunity to implement restorative justice in cases where it's appropriate. Again, everyone has to agree to participate in restorative justice. Otherwise, we've all heard the stories of where it can be a nightmare if everyone's not a willing participant.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, same question.
Thank you so much. So I agree with Tamara. It's something we should do more of. And, I would note it's something we should be doing more of in the 15th District Court, where people are coming in for minor issues, whereas in circuit, it's harder to do restorative justice, because sometimes it's really hard for a victim to come to that, room and be willing to speak to the person, and they may not be ready, right? And sometimes when the offense is less serious, it's easier to have that opportunity and to create that environment where everyone is comfortable and able to reintegrate the person into the community. So I definitely think restorative justice is important. I believe treatment courts are a form of restorative justice, and I do hope to expand them. Particularly in landlord-tenant and termination of tenancy cases. I think there's an opportunity to do more restorative justice and treatment court options there, particularly for in affordable housing, where people are subsidized, and if they're losing their tenancy and subsidy, they are really losing their key to remaining in this community. And so I think it's really important that we integrate that into our district court system. I'd also like to bring back the domestic violence treatment court. That's something we used to have in the 15th District Court, but don't have anymore. But having had the opportunity to speak with practitioners, they think that was something that was really important. And if we can get funding to bring that back, I do hope to bring that back. I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move to the next question and start with Ms. Moore. How would you handle a case in which your personal beliefs conflict with established law or legal precedent?
I think that is, I won't call it the essence of my career, but I think that is something that I deal with every day. And so deciding to run for judge and deciding to work from inside the system is something I take very seriously. But at the same time, I also take my oath as an attorney and hopefully eventually as a judge as something that I take seriously. We are obligated to enforce the law, and I would have no problem doing that. Certainly, there is an opportunity for judges, to act as leaders when precedent isn't clear, where there's room to interpret precedent in a more favorable way. But sometimes precedent is clear, right? Sometimes the law is black and white, and it is what it is. And I do believe that judges can do more to impact change and impact policy, and that there are ethical opportunities to do that. I am a student of the former Chief Justice Bridget McCormick, who talked a lot about how judges can be advocates, and she believes are obligated actually to do more advocacy because they are witnesses to the wrongs in our justice system, and that they are obligated when there's an opportunity to serve on a task force and talk about how we should change the laws and impact how we can improve the laws, that's something that we should be doing. So I do think that I will be very active in that role. But as for actually enforcing the law from the bench, there are obligations that we have, oaths we have taken, and it is how our community is run, and I will do my part. I will do my part. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Ms. Garwood?
Thank you. So recently there has been a lot of news about warrants that were authorized by the Attorney General's office that were brought to me at the 15th District Court regarding the encampment that was on the University of Michigan campus. And the Attorney General decided to charge 11 people, some for misdemeanor crimes and some for felony crimes. And I've started getting hate mail, and apparently there's a protest tomorrow because I have done my job. And when the Attorney General's office has come to me and demonstrated probable cause to charge someone and demonstrated appropriate evidence for me to have probable cause, I have to sign a warrant. And it's a perfect example of a circumstance where you may not necessarily agree with what's happening in front of you, but if a party meets a burden of proof as a judge, as a magistrate, you are obligated to, in this circumstance, sign the warrant, to follow the law, whatever the circumstance may be. So I definitely face these struggles on a day-to-day basis. And I believe that we have to enforce the laws as they are written. We are not legislators when we are on the bench. We have to turn to the legislators. I do participate in a couple different organizations at the state level trying to change laws that I think would better impact what's happening in the courtroom through the Michigan Association of District Court Magistrates and through an organization with the State Bar. I'm the chair of the Committee of Unauthorized Practice of Law, trying to make changes to better the courtroom. But when the law says what the law says and someone meets their burden, you have an obligation to follow that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, and we'll start with Ms. Garwood. How would Michigan's truth in sentencing laws affect your approach to sentencing?
So the sentencing that happens at the district court level is much different than sentencing that happens at the felony level. I'm sorry, start that again. The sentencing that happens for district court judges is different than the sentencing that happens at the circuit court level with felonies. And so at the felony level, as we currently stand, we have very specific rules and guidelines that judges have to follow. And in certain circumstances, they can deviate from those guidelines. At the district court level, we do not have those. We have maximum penalties that we can charge people with, but we do not have guidelines and specifics with that. And so I believe that we have to have truth, we have to have honesty, and we have to make significant investigation before we have sentencing with anyone. And I think a judge is required, I think they're obligated on all levels, regardless of the law, on all levels to dig as deep as you can to figure out what brings someone to court, to try to figure out what solutions that individual needs, putting those on the record and being clear to try to solve the problems that bring people to court. I think that's done through significant investigation of the judge, using community partners to try to figure out what has brought someone to court, and certainly using our probation departments to assist us in doing full investigations and then putting everything out on the record. I think that's important, and I think that's what's required of the law and what would be required under truth in sentencing.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, same question.
Thank you. So I would also agree with Tamara on that. Mostly what we're dealing with in the district court is really the opportunity to do restorative justice. When we're talking about criminal sentencing, we are talking about people coming in for misdemeanors and crimes punishable for less than a year, often punishable for less than 93 days. And our goal is to, one, make sure they don't come back in the justice system. Make sure, one, the victim is protected, but also that this person receives what they need to rehabilitate and not become a repeat offender who then comes in for something more serious and ends up on the felony docket in the circuit court. And so certainly in sentencing, we really are doing a deep dive. We really are trying to connect and figure out what it is that led this person to the court and what it is that will make sure that they do not come back, and what resources they need to basically change their lives or to move onto a path and stay on a path that gives them the opportunities that they need to succeed. And so I think that's what our focus should be in district court because of the types of offenses that we are dealing with. And that's not to say that the offenses aren't as serious, just that, you know, it's an opportunity to do early intervention. It's an opportunity to make sure people are getting the support they need so that they don't end up building, you know, a record that creates problems for them in other areas in their lives, because that is what happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Ms. Moore. What steps would you take to maintain order and a fair trial when presiding over a case that attracts public scrutiny and media attention?
So this is one of those areas where you get quite a bit of judge training when you go to judge school, and they like to throw curveballs at you just to give you an idea of what it can be like as a sitting judge when, you know, literally someone throws something in the courtroom or, you know, behaves oddly. And so I think that it's important for a judge to keep their cool, to make sure to announce beforehand that this is an environment where we need to, you know, have people quiet, have people respect the rules, and allow people to speak and to not interrupt, and for there not to be disruptions. And, you know, if needed, to remind people of that, but to also maintain it, right? And I think sometimes just having that mutual respect and establishing it at the beginning and making sure the attorneys understand that this is not, you know, a stage for a performance, but a place where we actually need to actually get the facts out and make sure that someone is getting their fair day in court, that's what we're doing today. We're not here to put on a show for, the media or court TV. We're here to do serious work. And, if that's not something that people can handle, then they are welcome to sit in the hallway, and watch, from the room that it's streaming on or something. There's no need to be in the courtroom if they, would like to treat it more like a movie theater where people are conversating, during proceedings. So, as far as actual attorneys or litigants causing disruptions, I think that there are opportunities just to do sidebars, to just stop court and just say we're not going to continue when people are speaking out of turn or interrupting, and normally that helps. Normally you don't need to bring in, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't pay attention to the 30 seconds. So all right, we'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Ms. Garwood, same question.
Thank you. So again, this is something that I deal with every day on the bench, maintaining order and dealing with public scrutiny and attention. I just referenced the cases that there'll be a protest tomorrow at our courthouse. One of the very first things I learned when I took the bench, one of my mentors said, whatever happens, don't read the comments. And it's really great advice for anybody who's in public service, because there's always going to be somebody who disagrees with what's happening. Hopefully it's not in the courtroom, but many times it is. So when I maintain the decorum in the courtroom, it's always important for me to start in a calm manner with clear set expectations for everyone who is in the courtroom, so they understand that disruptions will not be tolerated. And it's the judge's obligation, it's our responsibility to protect the record. So to make sure that we have a proper recording of everything that happens in court, because if something goes wrong, that's our only mechanism to figure out what to do if there's some kind of error in what's happening in the courtroom. In my experience, when I've had problems with people misbehaving in court or creating disruptions, I am very quick to stop them. I'm very quick to take a break, to leave the bench for 2 minutes and take a break so I can remain calm, bringing in extra officers when necessary. And I just make it very clear that I do not tolerate interferences with the record. That's my responsibility and obligation. And a lot of what we've done during COVID is now online. And so a lot of those videos of various court proceedings have come out with a great deal of public scrutiny and a great deal of attention. And I think it's good. It promotes transparency for the judiciary and for the courts, so people can see what justice actually looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll start with Ms. Garwood. What, if any, considerations would you give to mitigating circumstances, such as a history of domestic violence, PTSD, or other forms of trauma when making sentencing decisions?
So this is one of those issues that's near and dear to my heart. In my opening, I talked about the importance, I believe, in putting an end to cookie cutter justice. And so we have to accept people as they come to court. And part of that is realizing that everyone has different life experiences, and that's how they arrive. And so we have to meet them where they arrive when they come to the courtroom. And I believe in most cases, most people aren't out committing crimes for fun because they want to. There are those people, but most people are in circumstances where oftentimes they're left with difficult decisions. Just the other day, we had a domestic violence case where there are 7 cases where the woman who was in front of me was the victim. And now this is the 8th case, and she's identified as the aggressor. And so certainly as I'm dealing with this young woman, I am looking at all of her interactions that she's had that have been reported with the police. I'm interacting with her attorney, trying to figure out what kind of resources does this person need, so that, as Ms. Moore said, she and I definitely agree on this. We need to get to the root of the problem that brings people to court. And if we can help them so they never come back to court, except for regularly scheduled appearances, if we can help them so they never come back to court, then the court has success. And so that's why I believe we have to look at mitigating circumstances. And we have to see people as a whole person, not just as this one event, so that we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, same question.
Okay, thank you. So the first 12 years of my career was in victim advocacy. I represented crime victims, mostly domestic violence survivors, in all sorts of different cases. I tried to do it holistically, be it an immigration case, or a public benefits case. I tried to figure out how to help them stabilize. So it is something that is very important to me. And I tell people all the time, the state of Michigan, believe it or not, ranks dead last in providing victim support services. It's something that we do not do well and that we can do better. And if we acknowledge and understand that the more times people are touched by the system, and often those first few times, it's usually as a victim, and it's usually where we had the opportunity to provide them with support and we did not do so. And when victims do not receive the support they need to stabilize, rehabilitate, and recover, they are more likely to come back as offenders. And so we do have to, as Tamara said, accept people as they are. And I don't see it so much as impacting their sentence as impacting what their treatment plan will be, because I hope that people will want to come into treatment court and want to receive the services that they didn't receive, that led them on this path in the first place, that they will truly come as they are and work toward getting on a path that gets them what they need to recover and to re-enter the community as a stronger, more successful person. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this next question will be our last question for tonight's forum, and we'll begin with Ms. Moore. How would you balance being an independent judge and an elected official?
Okay, so how will I balance being an independent judge and an elected official? All right, so I think that it doesn't sound to me like an issue. And I think some of that is because of how our judiciary is elected and how it comes to the bench. And the reality is we reelect our judges every 6 years, and very rarely does anyone run against a sitting judge. And so in some ways that allows us to do our jobs well with respect to the oaths we've taken and with respect to our duty to enforce the law. And so in a sense, it's an opportunity to do what is right, and not just do what you think is popular, or respond to protesters just because it's what you want to do. I don't think there's as much pressure to do that. I think it's important that judges are independent and respecters of the law and prioritize the law in the courtroom. And so I do think that's important. And I do think there are appropriate ways for judges to advocate and work to change and improve the law. And, I plan to do that. And I also plan to be a judge who is more welcoming and more open and more willing to enforce progressive measures and in the courtroom if I am elected. And so that's something that I will do. But I do think that we're in a good position just based on the way our judiciary is set up to remain independent and to behave accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Garwood, same question.
Thank you. So in my current position, I'm appointed to the bench, and I am accountable to the chief judge for the 15th District Court. And I think when we look to judges and the independence and how to balance being an elected official, certainly judges are always accountable to the voters. We're also always accountable to the Judicial Tenure Commission, so that we can't run wild or run amok doing things that legally we're not allowed to do or we don't have authority to do. But I do note that judges have to be careful. Oftentimes as elected officials, we are out promoting certain issues, promoting certain ideas that we want to accomplish. Many judges often are trying to be sort of legislators from the bench. And certainly we have to follow the rule of law, but we have to be careful because we can't disclose information demonstrating how we might rule on a particular issue. And we have to remain unbiased, and we have to remain fair, and coming into court with an open mind. So I think it's a balancing act. Certainly, Ms. Moore is correct. People don't run against incumbent judges. It's just not something that happens. But I do think as judges, we have to be mindful and careful that we're not taking steps in our position as elected officials to demonstrate how we would rule on particular issues, because then that does suggest some form of bias.
Thank you. At this time, we will move to our closing statements, and we will begin with Ms. Garwood.
First of all, I want to thank the 4 different organizations that have hosted today, and I want to thank all of the volunteers, and I certainly want to thank the moderator and our timer as well. For 25 years, I've worked to increase access to justice throughout our community and throughout the state of Michigan. I've worked to protect vulnerable individuals and to improve our justice system. When I was outside of the court, I worked hard to make changes in the court, and now inside the court, again, I've talked about my 3 main principles trying to improve our court system. For 8 years, every day, my bench experience, my compassion, and my judicial temperament have been on display, and I welcome anyone who would want to come into our court. It's an open court. You're welcome to come in, and you're welcome to see that on display. I'm running to expand my life's work. I'm dedicated to justice. I'm dedicated to the law, fairness, and equity, and improving the lives of the people who come to court, whether they're members of our community or they're just passing through. I hope that everyone will check out my website, Garwood for Judge, check out our feed on Instagram. I think there's a Snapchat, but I'm too old to know what that is. And certainly on Facebook. And again, I'm Tamara Garwood, and I hope to have earned your vote for our election. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Ms. Moore.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all so much for having this forum and putting it together for both of us. We really appreciate it. It's hard to get visibility. On the bottom back of the ballot, I tell people nonpartisan section, you got to flip it over. You've got to pay attention to the nonpartisan section, and you have to have some idea of who we are and what we stand for. So today, I really hope that I have communicated to you my experience is not just in the courtroom. It is not just behind the bench. It is also on the ground in the community. It's multifaceted. It really is about having worked with people from all walks of life and bringing that perspective to the courtroom. As I pointed out in the intro, it really is, I think, where we are right now and what we believe in right now in this community. It is about restorative justice. It is about increasing access to justice and having more inclusive courtrooms and making sure everyone who comes into that courtroom gets their fair day in court. And it is also about protecting victims' rights. I don't talk a lot about me, but I have been in the Ann Arbor community for about 22 years. I'm a double Wolverine. I graduated from U of M for undergrad and law school. I am raising 3 children here in the community. And so I am human. I'm not just a robot, even though it does seem like based on my resume that all I do is work all day and all afternoon. That's true too. But all right, thank you all so much for having me. I went too long again. I'll get better at it. Tammy knows I'll get there.
I want to thank you both for your time this evening and your participation in this very valuable session. On behalf of the sponsors of tonight, thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
The League thanks the candidates and volunteers who participated in today's forum and the community members who submitted questions. Please urge others to view our forums. And most importantly, please vote in the November 5th general election, either by absentee ballot or in person.